Thank you. Good evening. This is the City Services and Environmental Policy Committee meeting. Board of Alders notice, New Haven. The City Services and Environmental Policy Committee of the Board of Alders will meet in person on Thursday, December 5th, 2024 at 6:00 p.m. in the Board of Alders chamber located at 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, to hear and act on the following items. Item number 1, LM-2024-0575, order of the New Haven Board of Alders designating the southeast corner of Davenport Avenue and Asylum Street as Reverend Benita D. Grubbs in perpetuity for her commitment, great contributions, and service to people in New Haven and beyond. Item number 2, LM-2024-0599, order of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the mayor of the city of New Haven to apply for and accept the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021 Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program Formula Grant from U.S. Department of Energy to fund the purchase of an electric refuse vehicle. Item number 3, LM-2024-0683, order of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the execution of a throttling valve easement agreement between the City of New Haven and South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority. Item number 4, LM-2023-0651, order of the New Haven Board of Alders designating the corner of Sherman Parkway and Harding Place as Cameron's Corner to commemorate and honor the vibrant life of Cameron Gale, a dedicated cheerleader and source of inspiration for countless young individuals in the community. Committee action only is item number 5, LM-2024-0637, order approving the designation of a residential parking zone on Porter Street from Legion Avenue to the end of Porter Street. Per Honorable Anna M. Festa, Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. These items are on file and available in the office of the City Clerk located at 200 Orange Street, room 202, New Haven, Connecticut 06510. For accessibility-related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651B or 203-946-8582 TTY TDD. Public comment and testimony may also be submitted via email at publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2:00 p.m. on the day of the meeting. This meeting may be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alders YouTube page. I'm Anna Festa, Chair of Csep, and also the Alder for Ward 10. I will allow my colleagues to now introduce themselves, starting to my right.
Gary Hogan, Ward 28.
Amy Marks, Ward 26.
Campton Singh, Ward 5.
Kiana Flores, Ward 1.
Thank you, colleagues, for being here this evening. I thank everyone for being here tonight as well. I know it's the tree lighting and it's been a little challenging with parking, which is a good problem to have on a night like tonight. So thanks everyone for your patience. I don't know if anyone is here to represent item 1 for Reverend Grubbs. Oh,
Yes.
You made it. Okay.
Yes.
Do you need a moment? I can move on to item number 2.
Yeah, I can take a moment.
Okay. So with that, I'll move on to item number 2, which is the energy efficiency and conservation. So I see that our director is here, Director Winter. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So it looks like we're applying for another grant for another refuse truck.
Good evening. So Stephen Winter, Executive Director of Climate and Sustainability, 459 Dixwell Avenue. Thank you, Chair Festa and members of the City Services Environmental Policy Committee. This is a great grant to apply for. It's the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. If it feels familiar, it's sort of like the green version of the CDBG program. So it's a formula block grant. And the Department of Energy is the funding source. This is through the infrastructure bill that President Biden passed. And the city has $184,000 in funding available to it. And we have applied, the deadline has passed, but we have applied for the grant in the form of an electric vehicle rebate. So there's several different pathways for claiming the grant. And the way the Department of Energy set it up, that you could apply with kind of like making your own grant, or you could use one of several tracks that they'd set up. So in this case, if the city purchases electric vehicles, it's very straightforward administratively to be reimbursed. So communities who are getting all different sorts of sources or sizes rather of funding can pick a track that works well for them. For this, what we'd like to do would be to use it to pay for the difference in cost for an electric refuse vehicle, but a smaller one, because it wouldn't cover the full difference in cost for a larger refuse vehicle. So if you think of the smaller refuse vehicles that you might see emptying our parks barrels, this would be a good fit for the difference in cost between an electric and a diesel version. We have one refuse vehicle right now in the DPW fleet. That's a larger version. That's a class 8 vehicle. This is a class 5. So there's different classes depending on the weight that the vehicle is carrying. So we're still evaluating that vehicle. Unfortunately, delivery was delayed. There was a sensor. These refuse vehicles, or the electric refuse vehicles, are very high tech, and there was a sensor that for a long time we couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. It turned out that the sensor itself was malfunctioning. So once it was replaced, we were able to deploy the vehicle. We've had a couple of operational issues, mainly that we're having a braking kit installed so that if the vehicle's on an incline, the brakes engage automatically. And we're hopeful that the truck will function without issues once that install is complete, which should be complete on Monday. So that's a short version of saying, like, we're not 100% sure that we are ready to get another electric refuse vehicle at this time. But if we continue using the electric refuse vehicle we have, and it meets our expectations, then we have the ability to use this funding to help cover the incremental cost for a second one. We did come before this committee about this time last year for the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act grant. We were originally thinking we could use that grant to get a second electric refuse vehicle. But with the delays in getting the first vehicle deployed, even though we rewarded the grant, we decided not to deploy it. So excited about the potential here for this, and really want to stress the benefits. Once you've got an EV like this up and running, there's less maintenance, there's no pollution, and just as a reminder, it's diesel pollution, so it's particulate matter and smog-forming emissions. So it's the things that really affect people with asthma and respiratory illnesses, and these are vehicles that literally travel every day in our neighborhoods. So really this is important operationally, but also as a public health matter. If, let's say it's next summer and we're still evaluating the first EV, we can still use this funding for other EVs if we decide to use it to purchase a whole new vehicle or the incremental cost of another vehicle. So there's lots of avenues for deploying the funding flexibly so long as we're using it for vehicle electrification.
Is that it?
Yeah, and I think maybe the last thing I'd say is the time frame. DOE would like this funding to be spent by May, the end of May, or actually might have been extended a little bit, but the middle of 2026. So we also have a fair amount of time to make decisions.
So we have already applied for this grant,
Yes, we put in the application for the rebate.
and our chances of actually getting it are,
Close to 100%. Yeah, the funding is out, and we've submitted before the deadline, so there should be no issues with accessing the funding once it's approved.
Okay, and we have a little bit over a year to use it, and you mentioned the smaller refuse vehicle is the priority.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit for the health reasons I mentioned and for the amount of funding we have. Like it fits nicely with the difference in cost between a small diesel refuse vehicle and a small electric refuse vehicle.
Okay, but you also mentioned that it's a flexible grant, so if for some reason we don't apply for the refuse vehicle, we could apply for other electrical vehicles that, I'm sure we have trucks or whatever that need to be replaced.
Yes, if you ask any city department, they'll give you a list that's longer than we can afford of vehicles that they'd like replaced. So yes, yes, it is flexible, that's exactly right.
So what will determine whether we get this refuse truck or not?
I think it'll be a matter of just continue to evaluate the performance of the first vehicle and making a decision, one, whether it's performing reliably up to our standards, and then two, the urgency of replacing the parks vehicle. So if it suddenly became very urgent to replace that vehicle, then I think we would replace it with a conventional vehicle and use the funds for other electric vehicle purchases.
What is, from the time of ordering this type of electrical vehicle, EV, this refuse truck, to the time of delivery, because it took a long time for the other refuse truck to come in.
Yeah.
So what is that time frame? Because as you mentioned, that's important because our trucks, if they're breaking down, we need something ASAP, then that kind of gets in the way.
Yeah, well, it was very slow for the first one, and if you ask the manufacturer, they would say, well, it wasn't quite version 1, but they'd say it's like version 1.5, so it was very, very early in the adoption cycle. The thing about trash trucks in general is that they take a long time to build. What you're really doing is combining two pieces of machinery. One is the cab and the chassis of the vehicle, and the second is the body. So it's actually typically assembled by two different manufacturers. So even for a diesel vehicle, you could be looking at about a year before you get your vehicle. You're probably looking at like 15 to 18 months for an electric vehicle. So there's a long time frame, similar to like when you think of a fire engine, but not quite as challenging as a fire engine for lead time.
Okay, so diesel takes at least a year as well.
I haven't asked in the last month or so what the lead times are, but those are the figures from the last time we asked about.
How are our diesel refuse trucks doing? Are we having any issues with those trucks?
Well, the diesel fleet is relatively old. So like if you were a private business, you would probably be replacing your refuse vehicles within 7 years. And the average age of our fleet is beyond that. So we really do extend the lives of these vehicles to keep them on the road because any of the vehicles are so expensive to replace. But that also means that you have challenges like you do with any capital asset that's reaching the end of its useful life. So I think we need to be making investments in the refuse fleet, and also So
Regardless of EV or not.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the goal here would be to help make those investments in the refuse fleet and doing it in a way that should help us in the long run with lower operations and maintenance costs. So you have a fraction of the moving pieces in an electric vehicle, and your maintenance regime is much less demanding. There's many fewer things to worry about. You don't have to worry about oil changes. The brakes need less maintenance because instead of just relying on the typical braking mechanism, you're relying on regenerative braking, which helps reduce strain on brakes. So there's a lot of good reasons, operations wise, to make an investment in a more expensive refuse vehicle, a more expensive electric refuse vehicle. So that, yeah, that is the part of the reason as well. Is like in the long run, this should be a good thing for fleet reliability.
Colleagues, questions for Director Winter?
I do have one.
Alder Cody?
Director Winter, I'm sorry, Gary Urban, Ward 28. As you increase the EV vehicle in the city portfolio, what is the maintenance plan after the warranty? Is this something that can be done in-house, or is it going to be a third party?
So most of the vehicles we purchased are Chevy Bolts, which have an 8-year warranty. I think it's 8 years, 100,000 miles. So we have a pretty long window there. I believe with the refuse vehicle, we have a 5-year warranty. After that, I think it would be wise for us to be ensuring we have good maintenance agreements, either with the dealer that we purchase from, or there are some third-party companies. There's one out of Stanford called Round Trip EV, and their whole business model is, well, specifically for Round Trip, is electric refuse vehicle maintenance. And their business proposition is, because the maintenance savings are so large, you could profitably outsource the portion of the, or you can outsource all the maintenance responsibilities to a third party like them and still come out ahead as a fleet owner. So that's definitely something for us to consider as the warranties expire.
Thank you, Director. I'm good, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder. Alderman? Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just interested in your reminding us in your letter about the 2021 electrification resolution, where the city was called on to electrify all municipal vehicles by the end of 2030. Do you happen to know sort of how we're doing in reaching that goal? What percentage of our vehicles are electrified so far, and whether you think we're on track to meeting that goal by 2030?
That is an excellent question. I think we're at about 7% with the bolts that we purchased last year. So, at the trajectory we're on, we would not meet the goal. But I think it's a very valuable goal to help inform our decision making. So when we look at our rolling stock decisions, we have that as a lens to say, well, is there an electric alternative available? What's the difference in cost? Where can we look to grants like this or other incentives to help cover the difference in cost if there is one? There's some vehicles now where they're pretty much the same, which is encouraging, but often there is a price premium. And it looks highly likely on the federal level that the incentives, the tax, or in our case, direct payment incentives, will be removed. I think that'll make it much more challenging. So right now, we're in the process of applying for $285,000 in incentives, federal incentives for the bolts that were purchased in fiscal year 23-24. And that's great because we can then reuse that money or recycle in sustainability mode towards more vehicle electrification. If the federal incentives are removed, we'll probably only have one more cycle where we'll be able to do that. So we'll need to be looking at the Zero Diesel Emissions Reduction Act program I mentioned and other opportunities. So part of it is challenging to meet because the changes in federal incentives potentially, and then part of it has to do with the availability of vehicles that meet a given use case. So the great thing about the bolts was we were able to find a pool of vehicles that met our use case that were available and actually at a really great price. For many vehicles, we're still waiting for the market to catch up to those use cases. So like the classic example opposite the bolt would be like the giant trucks that plow snow when there's a blizzard. We don't really have a good electric alternative for that yet. So part of it is also the changing market dynamics. And again, that'll relate to federal decision-making in that the Biden administration followed the Obama administration in clean vehicle standards, and the Detroit manufacturers are all asking them to keep those so that there's something to guide this shift in the market. So yeah, we'll see how that continues to evolve. We are, if you compare our municipal fleet to vehicle adoption in the state, like if the city were a community, I think we're pretty close to the leading communities. So if you look at like EV ownership rates in like Greenwich or Wilton, they're about the same as the city of New Haven. So I think like we should be happy about that. The one last thing I'll say, sorry, I'm going on and on, is the big opportunity that New Haven Public Schools has through the next round of funding through the EPA Clean School Bus Grant. We were waitlisted for our last application. Very hopeful that we're able to reapply in this next round of funding, which would fund the purchase of 50 electric buses. And again, these are vehicles going through our communities every day. Our kids are exposed to them every day. And so the health impacts are really, really tremendous there. So we're getting close to the end of that program. There may be one more round of funding after that. I know the New Haven Public Schools has been working with First Student on another application, so I'm hopeful about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Alder Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Winter, thank you for what you're doing and having our city towards this EV fleet and reduce our emission. And, as a city, we strive with asthma. And thank you for your work you're doing. Thank you. This funding, is it only for purchasing, or you could use this for a leasing option also? That's where my thought is going with this here.
That's a great question. This funding is for purchasing, and we're focused on the fleet in part because we've made a lot of progress. Our city engineers made a lot of progress with charging. So we have, I think, 10 chargers on State Street now, a fast charger at DPW, charger at the refuse garage, and then DPW's now moved to Chapel Street, where we're going to have a whole nother bank of level 2 chargers and 2 new fast chargers. But I believe this is just for purchasing charging equipment and vehicles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Alder Flores.
Thank you, Chair Festa, and thank you, Director Winter, for a very informative and exciting project. I have a couple of questions, if that's all right. So you talked about how there's certain locations where there are charging stations. Does that mean that, when all is said and done, and if we're able to get this smaller refuse vehicle on the streets, would it be concentrated in any sort of, you mentioned parks as one of the places that these vehicles are used. So would there be sort of a central location for this, or would there be an opportunity to have this refuse vehicle sort of be on display for other people to see across the city?
Oh, that's interesting. I think that the vehicle will probably be garage or home wherever we install its charging station. So that's probably where it'll primarily live.
Mm-hmm.
The vehicle we have, the EV refuse vehicle we have, looks very, very similar to a diesel vehicle. We have a big insignia on it that says it's all electric, but absent the smokestack, it's not so different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if we move forward with this, then it would be going through all the parks throughout the city. So it would circulate in that way, in a pretty visible way.
Gotcha. Yeah, that just came to mind because I remember when you had come to the committee talking about the other refuse vehicle, Alder Caroline Tanby Smith mentioned it'd be really cool to have sort of a display the way we do at children's schools with fire trucks. Again, I think it would be really cool to see these on display because a person in the day-to-day might not see it. I've really enjoyed walking through the green and seeing the electric buses. It makes me wow, look at us improving and showing that we are the leaders in that regard. And I was just interested if you had any metrics so far in terms of the carbon emissions that New Haven has saved using these refuse vehicles or projected, just out of interest to see the progress on that?
Yeah, we have some projections looking at if, like, what would happen if you electrified the whole fleet. And that's something that the company I mentioned, Round Trip, provided us with. They did it. The Connecticut Innovations, which is like the state of Connecticut's venture capital arm, made an investment in Round Trip, and they paid for them to do a fleet analysis for us. I think that would be a good snapshot of what the savings are projected to be and what the air quality impacts are projected to be. I can certainly share that with Misty and the committee.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I think it could be really compelling for members of the community to see how worthwhile this process is.
So the request through the chair would be
Yes.
to get a report on where we stand at the present time, as well as
The projections.
the projection. Okay, noted, thank you.
And then one other question is just, I guess, sort of looking forward. So you mentioned the buses and how that's going to be a future opportunity for the New Haven Public Schools to work on electrifying. What is sort of next to electrify once, like, are we sticking with refuse vehicles and, number one priority is getting that fleet electrified, or are there other avenues that the department is looking at exploring?
I think the general approach so far has been to get one, use it in its use case, and then when we're comfortable with it, purchase more. So, we started out with a handful of bolts and then made a much larger purchase of bolts. We're going through that with the refuse vehicle. I think there's an opportunity to do that with street sweeping. And then we have a handful of vans in the fleet. We have a very large police fleet. So looking at operational roles that are less demanding than patrol that help us to vet police vehicle. So we're working with NHPD right now on that to get one out for traffic enforcement, and then we'll be able to put it through the paces and make decisions about, okay, you then give this to, your district leader, or, how do we finally get to the patrol fleet, which is a very large portion of the city fleet. They have over 100 vehicles at PD, and they run in idle constantly, which is obviously not good for air quality, not good for fuel efficiency. It's not good for the engine, right? Cars are not designed to idle. So again, there's a really good reason operationally in terms of maintenance to move to electrifying vehicles in a use case like that. So I think those are some more opportunities where we can say, okay, let's put one out there, see how it does, and then make some longer term decisions about how do we scale that up.
Gotcha. Those were all my questions. I appreciate a lot the sort of forward looking that you guys are doing in the Office of Climate Sustainability. Thank you, and thank you, Chair Festa.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Just have a couple somewhat follow up. We've been pretty lucky with the weather. Will anything zero or below zero affect the usage of these vehicles, the refuse vehicle?
This always comes up. It's a great question. So lithium-ion batteries, which is the dominant battery chemistry in electric vehicles today, are affected by changes in weather. They're more or less happiest around room temperature. At really cold, on really cold days, the range is reduced. It can be reduced up to, let's say, a third in most cases. So that's something with the refuse vehicle where we have oversized the battery. So it has the equivalent of like 7 Chevy Bolt batteries. Over the summer and fall, when it finished a route, it would typically only have used a third of its battery. So we feel really confident that the changing weather won't be an issue. The police vehicle that we're looking to deploy with NHPD, That has really enormous battery for what's the equivalent of an SUV. It's a quarter of the refuse vehicle, so it's almost 2 Chevy Bolts. Now that's designed specifically with the duty cycle of a patrol vehicle in mind. Chevy says that you can run it with the air conditioning and the heat on for 25 hours under the worst conditions. And then in the ideal conditions, it can run for 50 hours. So we'll see, whether it meets that under New Haven's conditions, but that's how they're designed with the cold weather in mind. But there definitely are reductions in range with lower temperatures.
Okay, so range, not necessarily getting it started and going.
Yeah, it shouldn't affect the reliability of the vehicle.
Because, we're mentioning buses, and we rely on the buses to get the kids to school.
Mhm.
And we want to make sure that these buses are going to be reliable
Yeah,
under any circumstance. Have we considered even hybrid vehicles?
no, not really. In part because oftentimes someone will say like, well, I want to get an EV, but I'm worried if I go on a long trip, where will I charge the EV? And that's changing as more and more fast chargers get deployed, and as vehicle manufacturers shift to the North American charging standard, which is the Tesla plug. So you can now get adapters for like a Ford or a Hyundai, which allows you to use the Tesla network, which is the largest network. But anyway, all that aside, most of these vehicles are very rarely, if ever, leaving New Haven. So
So for
there's not.
something on a municipal level, it works, it's fine, and we don't have to worry about hybrid. I guess the hybrid was more for reliability regarding weather, more so than, but if you're saying that even EVs are reliable with below zero temperatures, then
Yeah, I'm not an expert on hybrids, but I do know that if you think again about like the number of moving pieces in the vehicle, in a hybrid you've got to maintain all of the components of a gas vehicle plus a miniature version of the components of an electric vehicle. So I think that you're going to be looking at more systems, more maintenance would be generally how I think you
I had a question, but it left me. Brain fog. We reach a certain age. Okay, any other questions from committee members? Okay, all right, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation. I just want to recognize for the record that Alder Hubbard has joined us this evening. Okay, so I'm going to go back to item number 1 on the agenda, because I know parking was a challenge this evening, and I wanted to give folks an opportunity. Will you be coming up for this? So come right up. Welcome.
Thank you.
And just for folks that will be speaking or testifying, we ask that you state your name and address for the record, and then you can go right into your testimony.
Okay.
And speak into the mic.
Good evening. My name is Shalina Torrey, and I am with Christian Community Action. And the address is 168 Davenport Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut. So I'm here. Our executive director is Charmaine Young. She sends her apologies, she couldn't be here tonight because we have our Christmas party this evening.
Busy night
Yeah,
tonight.
it's a busy night. So I'm here in her stead. So we want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm here on behalf of Reverend Benita Grubbs. Reverend Benita Grubbs has been the backbone of the work for the last 35 years at Christian Community Action. She retired last year, December 1st, 2023. We are here requesting support of naming the corner of Davenport Avenue on Ward Street, Christian Community Action, where Christian Community Action is located, to Reverend Benita E. Grubbs Corner. Here are a few statements of the many folks who spoke, and we have video that we played at her retirement party to honor her many years of service. One woman said, with whose hands? We have a few statements of many who said, one woman said, whose hands and heart had embodies all of what our God is asking us to do on this earth is true and force for the good. They thank you for your grateful and leadership and advocacy on behalf of New Haven's most vulnerable families. You possess a humble and boldness, and you inspired me. You are a genuine community hero. During Reverend Grubb's tenure, we saw the creation of Mothers and Others for Justice, a powerful advocacy group. In addition to shelter, we saw the creation of our housing and support from both the original Stepping Stone Transitional Housing Program to now the New Hope Housing Program on Winchester Avenue in partnership with the Housing Authority. We watched and started we watched as she started the Rise Center, which comes alongside families experiencing homelessness or at risk of its support to them on a journey to independence and stability. Reverend Wells has been the voice of hope and instrument of good trouble. No doubt through Reverend Wells' work, her staff, and programs, countless lives have been made better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alder Hubbard, I know that you're the maker, you wrote the letter of support for this corner naming. State your name, address for the record, and speak on behalf of the letter.
Angel Hubbard, Ward 3, 165 Church Street. Yes, I did write a letter of support because I support her. She is a great pillar of our community. She is a great advocate in our community. Not only she helped with everyone as far as facing homelessness and dealing with programs on a personal level, she also took time, not only 9 to 5, she still made sure some of the families in the community was fed. So I think it's more than fitting to name a corner. If I could name part of the state, it would be that, but I guess we can do the corner for right now. We'll give her a statue later.
Anything else you'd like to add? All right,
Thank you.
well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. And I'm going to rephrase that. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on items 1 or 2? Please come forward. For a third time, if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on items 1 and 2, please come forward. Seeing none, we will move on to item number 3. And this is for the easement. So if the presenters could please come forward. And as a reminder, anyone presenting, state your name and address for the record, please, and then go into your testimony.
Which one's the hot seat?
They all are.
Well, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for meeting tonight. My name is Michael Piscatelli. I'm the Economic Development Administrator for the city, and I reside at 353 Summit Street in New Haven.
Good evening. It's nice to be here and to see you all. I am Elia Alexiadis, Assistant Corporation Counsel with an office in this building.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jody Driscoll. I am an attorney at North Carolina. I represent the South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority.
Good evening. My name is Victor Denny. I'm an engineer with the South Central Regional Water Authority, and we hold an office at 90 Sergeant Drive.
Oh, I left off my address. I'm sorry. My office is at 265 Church Street in New Haven, Connecticut.
Great, thank you.
Just want to start by thanking you, and also, the committee's full understanding over the years, the value of partnerships, and particularly in terms of essential city services. All of us at the table share something very much in common, is we are customers of the Regional Water Authority, which provides upwards of 40 million gallons of water, safe drinking water to our community and our industries, and really one of the backbone services that really matters. And we thank the Water Authority for its partnership. And in particular, recently, quite suddenly, the president of the Water Authority passed, Larry Megaman, who's also chair of the Chamber of Commerce. So these partnerships run deep and over many, many years. So when they came to us and asked us for a safety improvement project to help deliver quality services, with the electric company, the water company, the gas company, you see the maintenance work as well as the capital improvements every single day in and around the city. Sometimes with some frustration because they've got a work zone set up and all the traffic's in one place. And on Fox and Boulevard, that's additionally complicated because it's a road where we've got a high crash rate, fatality rate, where you've heard from our city engineer, the work that we're going to do to actually make that road safer with the new median. And of course, the Water Authority's got a big infrastructure piece, what they're going to explain about in a minute. And they approached us to say, is there an opportunity to use a little sliver of land between the hotel the city purchased the Days Inn and the school in order to relocate this piece of infrastructure, make it safer for the workers, particularly for those of us who live on the east side, make sure that the water service is maintained in a good place. So what's in front of you is the standard easement instrument of the city. In this case, the easement has been reviewed by the city engineer, City Planning Commission has taken a look at it. The Board of Education has also reviewed it because it's actually on the school property for Ross Woodward. And it's two big buckets. One is 8,200 square feet, which is where the installation will be. And then there's a smaller piece, like it's almost de minimis, which is the work zone for when the particular valve will be put in place. But I'll pause there because there's a lot of technical associated with this relative to the piece of infrastructure, which I'll allow Jody and Victor just to kind of talk about a little bit.
Thank you, Michael. I think Michael covered most of what I wanted to talk about with the purpose of the easement, but there is an easement agreement that we have worked with the city attorney's office on, as well as the school board, and that does give the Regional Water Authority the ability to relocate that throttle valve that's located under Route 80 right now. It will, by relocating, it will provide a more safer access for the RWA to get into that valve to make any repairs, improvements, especially in emergency situations. As Michael mentioned, right now, being that it's in Route 80, it does require police presence for them to do any work. It impacts traffic. So this takes it off of the road and into this area of the school property that is not currently being used by the school. And would make for safer and more, easy access for those improvements that are needed. In addition to the permanent easement area, there is a small area which would be needed for construction laydown, construction grading as part of the process. And that area is, again, just a temporary area, and the term of the temporary easement is for 24 months. They don't believe it will take a full 24 months to do this project, but depending on stops and starts with other improvement projects that are going on in the area, there's a potential it could take that long, but we do believe it won't quite take that much time. The facility, we've shared some conceptual drawings with you. The facility would be located underground, although a portion of it would be above ground. There would be access to the facility from Barnes Avenue, again, safer for the employees and those working on the valve and any repairs that need to be done. One of the things that was very important matter for the Board of Ed was, what happens with this site? Who's going to take care of it? How is it going to be safe? The RWA will be, this will be part of their list of properties that they required to maintain. It will go on their quarterly maintenance schedule, as all of their properties where they have easements are. So they would be doing quarterly maintenance. They would also be there infrequently at the site. This is, once construction is complete, they're not going to be there working every day. This will be installed. They will come on a quarterly basis to do maintenance. And then there may be more often they may need to come for, certain adjustments or certain emergencies that require their access, but they are not going to be working there every single day and not causing a disturbance once it's installed. There will be regular scheduled maintenance. They will handle snow removal. They will handle landscaping. We very much understood the board's concerns about this becoming an eyesore. That is not what the RWA intends. They intend to keep this maintained and take that maintenance responsibility away from the Board of Ed there. They will coordinate with the Board of Ed on scheduling infrastructure and construction. And then additionally, they will coordinate with the Board of Ed for site fencing. There is some fencing shown on the conceptual plans, but it's still conceptual. And we did hear a need to make sure that the fencing is safe and secure, and for both the RWA and for the school's perspective, that is something that is needed. We also heard some concerns about the beautification. So they will be working together to come up with those more finalized design specs to make sure both parties' needs are met. That's pretty much all I was planning to say, but if anybody has questions or needs copies of any of the materials, I do have copies with me. If you want to hear more technical aspects about the valve and the
Let's do it.
I'll
I think
turn to Victor here.
Attorney Driscoll, everybody stole all my thunder, so that's a good thing. But again, thank you for having us, for accepting our. I know the comment was made that that the city is customers to the RWA, but we like to look at it like a collaboration. I mean, we're providing a utility, a service to the community, but through the 15 municipalities that we service and the collaborations that we have with them, part of the important process is that we keep it a positive relationship. So that's very important to us and part of the reason why we wanted to be here tonight with you folks. The technical aspects I could dive into a little bit, but I think, the fact that this is a 48-inch diameter water main, it doesn't only serve New Haven, it also pushes flow water into cities of West Haven, Orange, and portions of Milford. That is not only just the drinkable water that we're providing, but also fire protection. And there are, obviously there's a school nearby here, but we have hospitals, convalescent homes, and, regular business, commercial, industrial, and residential locations that we're servicing across the community.
And I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second, but
Yeah.
one of the things I just wanted to mention is we are providing conceptual designs. We will not be sharing very technical designs because this is part of the water supply system, and for safety and security purposes, we will be sharing general information. So I don't want you to think that we're leaving anything specific out, but there's, a very purposeful reason for that. We want to make sure that the water supply is safe for residents of New Haven as well as all the customers of the RWA serves.
Right. So that kind of boils down to part of the process that we're going through here. And, we want to make sure that we coordinated this work and made it so that we could get this work in ahead of the city project with the sidewalk, crosswalk, and the divider that's already been mentioned. And we've worked with the city engineer on that portion of the project. There's also a DOT factor where they're going to be replacing the traffic signal at Quinnipiac Avenue and Foxen Boulevard. So, part of the work that would take place in the existing area of that intersection would also be coordinated ahead of time with them. There's also the factor of, we're trying to make this happen during our low flow or low demand season, which is November to mid-April-ish, and, before demand starts picking up again. And that works out good for us and the city's project, where we can get this in ahead of time and have the city then come through. And, the worst thing we want to do is come back through after the fact and say, oh, well, nice sidewalk you put in, but we have to dig through it to do our project. So, but we've thought that out ahead of time and tried to coordinate everything with the city to make sure that both projects are successful. Like I said, I had a bit more ready to go here, but my team here helped me out to they'll lay everything out for you folks. So if you have any questions, I can give it my best shot.
So basically, we have diagrams in our
Mhm.
packets, and, I noticed that there's an easement on Barnes,
Right.
and I know that there's been a lot of work that was recently done there for sidewalks and streets, et cetera. Will there be any damage associated?
So there shouldn't be. There's a small portion of a sidewalk there that we might have to cross under for, the connection to that portion of the new throttling valve that's going in. But, any portion of that sidewalk there would be replaced. There may be a chance to go under it too without disturbing it.
Okay, so anything that gets ripped apart will be replaced?
Yes, absolutely.
Correct. Will any of this work, affect the residents and students?
So that is something that when we were talking with the Board of Ed, that we very much heard their concern about getting buses in and out of the school, and any traffic situations. So there was a discussion that once we are closer to starting the project, there would be coordination with the school to try to minimize the impact as much as possible to the school, daily operations.
That portion of the project after the throttling valve is installed, the second phase of the project would potentially take place during the summer months, and we're not anticipating needing to use the existing school drive per se, but again, we're hoping that those major construction portions and, the heavy duty equipment would be during the off-school summer months.
I didn't see a Board of Ed report in our packets, because it did go before the Board of Ed.
Yes, it was simply a, thank you, Alder. There was a motion to approve and recommend it to the alders. And it's all the same documents. And the same, if you have the written narrative, it's the same written narrative. So there's nothing different that the board had other than a vote and on a resolution to approve and recommend it. We can get you that.
I mean, were there any big concerns? I know, we mentioned the students' disruption or anything like that, but was there any other challenges that they posed?
I think that Attorney Driscoll and addressed, the issues that the Board of Ed raised, and satisfied their concerns. And we have met with, and they have met with, met with the school, the principal and other school officials. And they've, committed to coordinating with the school officials to do it in a way that doesn't disrupt the students, the learning, the school buses. And if it doesn't disrupt the school buses, then it should also minimize the impact on the neighbors, but I can't really speak to that. They were concerned about the aesthetics because there's a couple of trees that will be removed. And this is conceptual, but there's a commitment to work together and to maintain it, to mow the lawn or whatever's put down there. The park that borders Fox and Boulevard, it doesn't look great right now, frankly. So we think this ought to be an improvement, and I don't think there's any doubt that it's in the public interest. And it's on an area of land adjacent to in between one of the school driveways, and you can see it on your drawing. It's in between one of the school driveways and the old days inn. And so it's essentially unused space. Not like there's any students should be there anyways.
Yeah, no, the space isn't so much the concern as it is, the disruption to residents as well as students, because.
No, it's a fair concern. I'm sorry, it's a fair concern, and they've committed to addressing that. At least as far as the school concerns, they can speak to the neighborhood impact.
And one of the things too, to just add to that, is the version of the easement that you have in front of you is not the original version that we started with. I think it's fair to say that we had made some changes to it after we heard from the initial round of the board meeting where there were some concerns about fencing. While there's not a specific type of fencing that will be done in here because that required more collaboration, there is language in here about installing fencing. There is language in here about maintenance. We made sure we added some language to cover those concerns. So there was feedback from that meeting, and it was discussed among all of us, and wording was added to the agreement to reflect that feedback we received.
Safety?
the standpoint of construction?
Well, I think
or-
all,
yeah. Right,
because their
right.
safety of construction, their safety of someone contaminating, their safety of,
Sure.
you know, across the board. What, I know this isn't anything new,
Mhm.
so we already, or you all, already are with the safety for, you know, safe drinking water, et cetera.
Right, right.
But if you can maybe talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so safety is one of our first stars value with the Regional Water Authority. The construction crews, again, whether it's contractors or our own crews, you know, safety briefs are a main concern every day. And we have zero tolerance for any safety violations or concerns. And that's even if our personnel notice them. So if this is, you know, fall protection, confined space types of things, personal protective equipment, safety vests, hard hats, et cetera. So, you know, we really do pay heavy focus on that. The facility itself is going to be locked and alarmed and monitored on a 24/7 basis. So that means, you know, if there's any kind of tampering with the facility, our operations center is going to know about it. We can also control things from our operations center as far as, you know, the equipment in the actual vault. So from that perspective, it's you know, a much safer atmosphere where we don't need to necessarily go there to perform some of these operations that we do on a regular, semi-regular basis. So, you know, from all of those perspectives, you know, we especially feel like we have the safety component
Okay, so it's monitored
covered. Yes.
constantly.
And in addition to the safety features on the actual vault, the property area would be fenced in as well.
Okay.
And so there wouldn't be, you know, access to people
Okay,
walking by to walk in that area.
thanks for adding that.
If I may, please, let me direct a question. Can you speak to the construction fencing? Because because there's students there with it, and that they may be there, hopefully minimal times during construction, but I have seen the construction fencing, in my experience, can vary widely in its effectiveness.
You know, I think a typical type of, and again, it's something that we could collaborate with the school to make sure that it's, you know, something that's going to satisfy them from that perspective. But a lot of times a chain link fence, whether it's planted into the ground or it has stands and then each section is linked together. So there is no, with a gated access. So, you know, it's similar to what would be on
But
site.
I could even climb a chain link fence. Well, maybe not now, maybe
Mhm,
back
mhm.
at that age, that, you know.
So-
Is there any fear of that happening?
I mean, you know, from that standpoint, it's possible. You know, we're going to try to discourage it as much as possible, but
And you're also going to try to do the heavy work during
right, the
non-school
heavy
hours.
work is going to be exactly.
So
I mean,
the
they
goal-
have the tarps too that you can put over.
Right, the fence can be tarped or have slats in it, which would help so that
Just food for
feet can't
thought.
get in there yet. You know, a lot of times if someone wants to get in, they're going to get in. But for, you know, for the most part, I think it's going to be a secure site, signed appropriately, and, you know, during the construction period, obviously monitored and monitored.
I would add that this was definitely a concern at the Board of Ed, and the Board of Ed voted to approve it. And they discussed it in Finance and Operations, and again at the full board meeting. And I would say that the members appeared to be satisfied. But, you know, I think there's a balance or a tension between, you know, a 12-foot fence with razor wire on top that makes it look like a prison versus something that's low and aesthetically pleasing but isn't as secure. And so, you know, they've committed to working with the school officials and the Board of Ed officials to find the right solution for that.
Was the Alder contacted of the area? Alder Morant, Ward 12? Someone should really reach out to the Alder to make her aware that all of this is happening, so she can give fair warning to the residents in the area to make sure that they're aware of what's going on, because we get the calls from the residents. And I just went through it with the WPCA doing their some sewer stuff anyway. And I was getting the calls at, you know, 10 o'clock at night. So please reach out to the alder so she can give fair warning. Again, it's Teresa Morant, Ward 12. And you should be able to, Director Piscatelli should be able to get you that contact information. Colleagues, questions?
Oh, absolutely.
Alder Hogan. Go for it. Here, microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I read this properly and heard your presentation, this is about safety, being aesthetically pleasing, and provide better access for Regional Water Authority to monitor its water flow. Is that accurate?
That would be, yes, accurate.
Did I miss something in there, or-
No, it's an improvement to our infrastructure, and it does provide a safer scenario for access and maintenance to that control valve.
What happened to the old vault?
So the old valve, or the existing throttle valve is currently located at the intersection of Quinnipiac Avenue and Oxon Boulevard. And so because of that location where it is, it's a very, high traffic area, not safe for our personnel to be there. And there's a traffic control component to it whether it's an emergency situation or a regular maintenance situation to get into that location. So it's just been part of our capital improvement plan to try to relocate that to a more safe and accessible location.
I understand the part of relocating it, but what happens to the actual vault that's underneath the street? Does that just get closed down and decay, or do you have some preventive measures to prevent any further damage to that intersection?
I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen to it, but yeah, I'd have to find out.
We can check with the, some of the other technical folks at the OWA
Right.
if you'd like us to get back to it.
Will the old valve be removed? I presume, I always assume that.
Well, right, so it would be removed and as part of the process of, or opened permanently as part of the process. So I'm just not sure what the plan was to remove the old valve that's there, or the old chamber that's there, or to leave it, to abandon it.
I would just be curious what happened to the old vault that's underneath the intersection, or what the plan would be. I have no further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alder Marks. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm following up on my,
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, so the request is to find out if, what will happen with the old vault.
following up on my colleague's question about the removal. I don't have a visual in my mind of what that location looks like. What is currently does the plot of land where it is right now look like?
It's under the road.
It's literally under the street.
Yes.
So there'd be no need to worry about the aesthetic of the area. Once it's removed, it's just gonna remain city street.
I believe that's correct.
Right, yes.
Thank you. Some other questions, if I may. I'm just specifically interested in a concern regarding disruption that I just hadn't heard, which is noise. The noise during construction and the noise during maintenance. I'm not oriented well enough to this map to understand where the school is actually located, the learning classrooms, how far they are. And in addition, this Days Inn is the building that was recently turned into the shelter, the homeless shelter by us at great cost, which was a positive and worthwhile investment by us, but certainly what would be the noise both during construction and maintenance of individuals who are living and trying to be oriented in the rooms close by.
So I don't know if you have the conceptual drawings that we have. And I have copies of this, I can pass it around. Again, it's just conceptual, but this view is a view from where the easement area would be, and the school is significantly set back. I don't have exact distances, but I don't know if you have.
Do you expect noise to be heard in the classrooms from construction and maintenance? I guess
It's not, while we say, the more heavy duty construction equipment, there's not gonna be any kind of blasting or hammer drilling or anything like that. This is, typical excavation and placement of the structure itself and piping. So it's not expected to be anything more than, typical construction.
Which I might say might be quite disruptive to children in a classroom.
But again, the intent is to try to schedule that heavy construction when the school is not in session. So that's the intent and the scheduling, assuming it works with the other schedules that the city has for the improvements to Route 80.
Perhaps it's a question for Mr. Piscatelli, the attorney. Did the Board of Ed focus on and give proper attention to the question of noise in the classrooms from the work? I just would hate for us to get to a situation where the teachers were upset about noise in the classroom, so it's distracting.
Good question. And I would say that I don't recall noise being specifically discussed, but the idea was to do the work in a way that didn't disrupt the school, and preferably during when school is not in session, during vacation time, whether that's over a holiday break or spring break or the summer. But understanding there's coordination, but I know the board does not expect this to go on while school is in session.
And I'd say that, unfortunately, having operated some noise monitoring equipment over my experience as a civil engineer, I know that especially for a traffic way of this nature, looks like 4 lanes each direction, the traffic along that section of road there, the noise from the traffic is far going to exceed construction noise. I mean, I've had to have police officers go out with noise monitoring equipment during the middle of the night because I couldn't get a noise reading on like a construction site because the traffic nearby was so much louder than the actual construction equipment. So I ventured to say that the traffic passing by there is already louder than the construction equipment's going to be.
And the highway is there too, 91.
May I just ask a follow-up question regarding noise, regarding the days in, something we've substantially invested in? Have those who are operating the days in and sort of responsible for the well-being and the noise levels in that building been in discussion or communication regarding this building going on next door to their site?
All important questions. We have not coordinated this yet with Continuum. We will do that when we're ready to start construction. So once the Board of Ed and the principal team at the school is satisfied with the construction plan, they will be our first customer into the property. We'll also walk that plan through with Continuum, the state, because of the permitting required from the state, and our city engineer to make sure that it's aligned. To your point, given the location of this particular facility, Continuum and the people who live at Days Inn arguably will feel the noise, such as it is for a short period of time, more than the school itself, just by the orientation of the school. So you're raising something that we have not yet done, but we will.
Would it be possible to have conversations with Continuum earlier in the process before this is a done deal and perhaps even before the easement is approved?
I think what we would request is that you approve the easement with a condition that says we coordinate with everyone to minimize the noise and the disruption. It's hard to describe because, to your point, every construction project has an impact, but it's like, if my sister-in-law was here, she would call it the digger is going to go out and scoop the dirt out, and then a lot of the equipment that's going in is pre-done, it's fabricated elsewhere and then fixed in place. So, it's not the same as like a drill activity or boring or you're pounding into bedrock or something like that to get some foundation in. So, I think we don't want to make it seem de minimis, but at the same time, it'll be very typical for the environment out here.
One more question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just obviously in looking at the language, the document for the easement, it refers to this easement as a perpetual. I'm new to the Board of Alders and such contracts. Perpetual seems like a long time. Might somebody speak to why we would be granting easement perpetually as opposed to for a finite amount of time that could be reconsidered, please?
No, I think, in part because I'd like to see the tree lighting, and really appreciative, and I'm glad you took Reverend Grubbs' item earlier. It's more the nature of the work. The utilities are institutions in our community. I mean, the partnership with our utilities almost transcends a lot of our other stuff. The Water Authority has been delivering water to our community from, goes back to Eli Whitney, if you will. So it was important to give a long duration here.
Might it be shorter than perpetual? That's my question.
Long duration.
It's a grant of easement. It's a permanent grant of rights to the land. In an easement, sometimes they're called rights of way. And so that's why it requires Board of Alder approval, because you're giving an interest in the land, and it will be signed and recorded on the land record, so that's why it's perpetual.
Some things for discussion, but thank you for answering my questions.
And I'll just add, typically utility easements are perpetual because there is a large, investment that the utility provider is making to make this improvement, and the improvement does benefit, all of the residents in the area. So for them to be able to make that investment, they need to make sure that they have rights to, that property for indefinite use.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we get a discount?
No, but I mean, the discussion, because of the nature of your committee, you should, like, our relationship with the water authority, you will see other stuff directly through the board or things that we do through the city's engineer's office. So like the water authority will partner with us on the flood wall over at Longmore, where we, under state law, order the water authority to move so that we can do our stuff too. So that's sort of the, sort of this long haul balance over many, many decades with, services, public services, where if we have to do something, we can order it to be done, but at the same time, when they need to do something, we get them, rights that are going to last this long duration, if you will. So.
And maybe just to add a little bit to that, so there, and you mentioned one of the WPCA projects that you're familiar with, that's their sewer separation project. So
That's one.
right, so there's a couple of those going on in portions of the city where, because of the relocation of the sewer line and coordination with them separating storm water from entering the sewer line, we've also worked with their projects to relocate some of our water lines. And that's a direct result of, again, trying to coordinate with them to have a successful project. We're also working and relocating, resetting some of our water lines there. So it's kind of like one of those, another one of the collaborations that we do. They're not lines that we had to replace at this time, but because of their projects and, us realizing the importance of those projects, we coordinated with them to relocate the line.
My add with regard to the legal frame, and we take it for granted, but just so everyone understands, the city owns the land. It's dedicated to school use, which is why I went to the Board of Ed first for approval and worked with the Board of Ed operations people on it. That's all. Thank you.
She's our attorney. She's into the legal angle, which I'm happy to have her on this committee. Questions?
I have one concern that was answered by the engineer. My concern was the fault and the locking system mechanism of it, but it was answered. It was monitoring security, so I was happy to hear that, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I'll just go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, the current location of the valve right now requires police presence because of its busy intersection? Okay, and just to clarify as well, moving it will mean no police are required?
Right, because we'd be on that, private property, the city property. So access would, again, be off of a driveway off of Barnes Avenue, and so there'd be no reason to have police presence while we're performing, our maintenance or inspections or checkups on the system there.
Right.
Okay.
Currently, the police presence is needed to make sure the traffic is stopped, to make sure it's safe for both the drivers of the vehicles as well as the workers.
But they would likely need someone on Route 80 during construction.
During construction.
During construction,
Yeah.
along the Route 80 portion, of course, there'd be police presence.
But once the construction is complete and they are doing their day-to-day, or not day-to-day, because there won't be day-to-day maintenance, but their quarterly maintenance, they would have access to the secure fencing and would not need police presence to gain access to the vault.
I see. And will this construction disrupt any type of services in terms of like residents around or the school's access to any water or?
Right, so there would be two, what they call taps to make this a complete process, and what we call live taps. So it's the type of tap that we can do without shutting any of the system down. I mean, within reason, it's not gonna be hours long or days long. It might be a 10 or 20 minute period where there might be a small disruption, but for the most part, the concept behind the live tap is that you don't have to do any kind of a shutdown.
I see. And is the responsibility of notifying nearby residents on the Alder, or would the water authority play some part in sending like a letter to residents on Barnes Avenue especially?
So yeah, typically if there's gonna be a planned shutdown, we notify all the residents or businesses property owners that it would affect. So again, being that there wouldn't be a planned shutdown, we might not be doing that, but if it's, if it's part of the process where, you wanna notify folks on Barnes Avenue, and there may be a few properties on, again, Quinnipiac Avenue where that would also be a potential, then I think we could certainly work that into our system. I know every day that I see the field operations plans going out, that there's always notes there that say 16 residents have been notified, or for however many are affected. So it's definitely part of our process.
I see. Yeah, I think my personal opinion would be that sending out the notification, even if the potential for disruption is small, would be great. I know my family lives on Barnes Avenue, and if they saw the construction, they'd be like, okay, so no one told us that there would be construction here, even if it really doesn't change their day to day. I think it just makes the residents feel more in the loop with things happening. Yes, so that was my point. And last question, what would be sort of, I guess, background on this project? Has this been sort of in the queue for a while, and now that the Foxen improvements are nearing, that we sort of wanted to expedite this, or have there been other situations, maybe in other places, where having a valve in a similar location where it is now, busy intersection, a lot of different moving parts, has gone maybe not favorably, and so we're looking to improve those aspects in the city? Just interested, I guess, in the background.
Just let me say, my first meeting on this was probably 4 years ago. And so I don't, but I'm going to address the other
I was
questions.
just going to say it's been going on for quite a while. I think we've been working on the easement language for probably at least a year now, maybe longer. And we met with the board. It was the end of the summer and throughout the fall. So that was just getting to the point where we're at now. But there's been many years of discussion between the city engineers and the RWA and other folks to get to the point where we are today. And this, there were from what I understand, there were other locations that were looked at, but this was identified to be the most ideal that would provide safe access, as well as minimize the impact on traffic and the residents.
Right. Thank you all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you all.
And if I could just add one more piece of information, I kind of had an aha moment as to why I probably wasn't informed of what would happen to the vault at the intersection of Route 80 there. So that portion of Route 80 is a state road, and we also have to coordinate our a right-of-way permit with State DOT District 3. And so they're going to be asking the same question, what we're going to be doing with it. And I apologize, I don't know, but that would be, being that it's a state road, we coordinate that information with them and, satisfy their needs from that regard.
Yes.
I should just also give credit where credit is due. Our colleague, Attorney John Ward, worked on the easement, south easement language. I dealt with where that's at.
Correct, yes. Okay, so I realized after this, the WPCA debacle that my street went through, which brings me with notifying residents. How will you notify? Because, we ran into a few challenges, and as much as the WPCA posted notes on everyone's door, what to expect, a week before, 24 hours before, etc. Not everyone is on our Everbridge system, so it was suggested that they add the information on the letter for people to sign up. The Everbridge system is our robocall system. So this might be something we want to apply with this as well. I know we.
Yeah, I might suggest to you, because I think we're learning with you, going on a journey to try to improve the communications with utilities, which typically run on their own railroad. Rather than ask the water authority to answer on the fly, which also might not be a satisfactory answer or something typical to our system, if you were, I think we would all be fine with a condition to your, or tell us to come back at second reading, should you move it forward tonight, with a communications plan of some sort, so that when you're satisfied that we've laid out a roadmap, but I think we own some of the responsibility to work with the water authority about how we've kind of learned from the WPCA experience and some others about how to get better noticing out. But I think if you ask the water authority tonight, they would think about it the way they typically think about it, and that's not our standard.
And we wouldn't expect you to maybe have that as a standard, but it's something that needs to be considered. How will you inform the residents? Is it possible, to have the Everbridge information on a letter for residents to sign up in case there's, something could go wrong and people need to be notified. It's extremely important to get in touch not only with the Alder of Ward 12, because now you're extending it to, I don't know if she covers Quinnipiac as well, yeah. But you may want, Ward 13, because that's another method that you can use to communicate with residents. Obviously posting something on our city website to inform those residents that this is happening. It sounds silly, but I will tell you it was very.
I'm a town engineer from 2 different towns in my past life, so notifying residents was of utmost importance to us, and we use so far all the methods that you've referenced, including letters to each individual property.
Yes.
Prior to construction. So again, a plan could be created. I'm not gonna maybe venture into what that might be tonight, I guess, but we're open to all and any suggestions for this type of a project.
And keep in mind, even getting in touch with the alders, we don't have every resident's contact information, particularly in some areas of the city that are very transient. So, any method, I know WPCA posted letters on every door with information. But there was still that one piece that was missing that, we did talk about, but this is something where it could be applied as well. It should probably be applied to every letter across the board for every utility company that does work to this degree. Dr. Marks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along with this communication plan, I'm still quite stuck on the issue of the days in next door, and just sort of what is the impact, and just would hate for there to be a perception that this was treated as empty land or abandoned land. Were we to have private properties there, I feel that we very much would have those private property owners at the table having conversations. So as Madam Chair was suggesting, perhaps we could have a communication plan shared before second reading. Might it be possible to push forward the conversations with Continuum, and for us to get some feedback or report through the chair as to Continuum's position on this, lest there is a concern from Continuum? Madam Chair, I don't know if that's an appropriate question to be asking.
Sure, because it deals with the communication aspect. So I'm part of CAB, which is the task force that was, or the board that was put together to work with Continuum, the residents of the area, et cetera. So maybe we can speak with George to put it on our next agenda.
And we'll organize that in a memo back through the chair for your first reading, second reading consideration. So if you move this instrument tonight, that we're going to come back and have a follow-on communication that has previews the roadmap on the communications plan, and that, to your point, we've touched base with and thoroughly went through this with not only, I think, the vendor, Continuum is our vendor, our service provider, but also, to your point, the representation of users at the facility.
Thank you, I just appreciate the there's a respect of the vested interest in that particular project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Marks. What is the time frame for this? What are you looking at for start date and end date?
I apologize, I do not have that information with me tonight. I think it really all depends on the timing of when this is approved, because obviously equipment needs to be ordered, materials need to be ordered, so I don't believe they have the particular date yet.
Well, yeah, but we're still within that, that low flow season before mid-April that we'd like to start and finish the project. So, again, we're up against to kind of mirror Attorney Driscoll's remarks. We're up against the timeline to start the process of ordering equipment and setting up the actual construction process. So
Okay, so it's based on.
prior to April, we're trying. Well, no, I didn't mean it like that. I just mean more from the standpoint that our window for that low flow season is up to. No, I hope we're not going to take till April, right? But is that April to mid-April timeline to finish the taps and the installation of the valve. So.
But it's not just a 4 or 5 month project.
No.
It's a longer project than that. No.
Right, so the second phase of the project would be to connect from Quinnipiac Avenue into the valve itself. But, that's the summer portion.
Okay.
Where we complete that portion of the project, but this initial portion would be prior to April.
The initial project.
And
the major construction that would be in the summer months.
right, major construction is in the summer months, but the tap off of Route 80 and the portion of the main that would go under the side of the city sidewalk project is that part of the project that we're trying to get
With
done
the low
before
flow season.
that low flow season, correct?
Okay, so provided the board gets all their information by the second reading, so we have what's called, if it passes the board, if it passes committee, then it goes to the full board as a first reading. The alders, everybody has an opportunity to question it or, look and review for 2 weeks before it goes to a second reading. And it's at the second reading where the full board will vote on the item. So we're looking at, our first reading will be not Monday, a week from Monday. And then 2 weeks after that is the full board of alder actual vote. So we would need all the information we just requested before that. Preferably not on a Friday at 4 p.m. Seems like we get a lot of our stuff on a Friday at 4 p.m. for a Monday meeting, which I don't know about y'all, sometimes we're busy on the weekends, and don't want to be reading these documents on the weekends. And Monday, a lot of us work. So, it would be appreciated to get it in a timely fashion so we can review it properly, ask any questions, any clarifying questions, and get those answers prior to that second reading. And if you have questions on that, Mr. Piscatelli.
No, I think that's entirely fair. You laid it out. The only thing we'll be mindful of holidays as well, so that we're not, really making a mess of your working calendar as well.
Correct. And you mentioned you want this done during the low flow. Will weather play a role in delays or any reason for concern, even for water backups or?
No, not yet. Again, the portion of the, connecting and reconnecting to the system are live taps. And, weather from any construction standpoint can play into things and, length and timing, but, hopefully we are used to living in the Northeast and we're used to dealing with the weather. So, yeah.
Just wanna.
Contractors still want to work. They don't. A lot of times the weather doesn't stop them. Yeah.
Any other questions? Alder Flores.
Just one final, thank you, Chair Festa. One final note, since you asked for suggestions about the notification process, it may already be a requirement in this process, but it would be great to have it both in English and Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just because that area definitely has Spanish-only speaking households. That's my last one. Thank you, Chair Festa. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just one more question.
Sure, Alder Hogan.
With the disconnection of the old line to the new line, is there disruption of service to any of the residents?
I did notice there's one, commercial property at the intersection that I'd have to ask what the disruption would be to that property, but that may be the only one. The rest of them, I believe, are expected to be no disruption in service.
Is it the Popeyes or the gas station?
It's probably the gas station, yeah.
Gas station.
I noticed there's a service line off of the main on Fox and Boulevard, so, that would be one of our construction sequence processes where we probably go out there ahead of time, redo their service line to whatever capacity that needed to be. So that'd be like a mini separate project before this whole thing started. We wouldn't just say, oh, we abandoned a line and you were connected to it, so sorry. But no, yeah, the service line would be dealt with.
So there are actually multiple construction sites on this project.
Well, so, the intersection itself would be one of them. If there's a new tap for a service to this property we've just identified at the intersection. There's live taps at both the Route 80 tap in front of the easement itself, and there's a live tap on the Barnes Avenue, Quinnipiac Avenue intersection. And then there's a new pipe that would connect from Quinnipiac Avenue through Barnes through the easement itself.
I thought the live tap on Barnes was near the driveway.
It may,
Not way up on Quinnipiac.
I believe they specified to me it was on Quinnipiac Avenue.
Madam Chair, thank you for the answer.
Actually, yeah.
Thank you, Alder Hogan.
Any further questions from committee? Well, thank you for the presentation. We all have homework. I appreciate you coming tonight to explain all of this, as well as the diagrams. They're helpful for us to get a better understanding, and we appreciate you making every effort to communicate with our residents as much as possible, just to avoid any obstacles and angry residents.
Well, thank you, members, for taking the time for a thoughtful review tonight. You raised some things that will make this project better and, mutually beneficial for our residents who use the service and our safety, the safety of our workers at the Water Authority, who've had to really deal with this traffic for many, many years. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Good night. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. And for a third time, if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we can move on with our agenda with item number 4. We will actually take no action on item 4. So we can move on to committee action only, which is item number 5. And this is basically something that we just need to read and file. The order approving the designation of residential parking zone on Porter Street. That's already there. There's already a residential parking zone. So we will just need to read and file that item. And with that being said, do I hear a motion to move item number 1?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do I hear a second? Second. Item 1 has been moved and seconded. This is in regard to the corner naming for Reverend Benita Grubbs. Any discussion? Okay, so Alder Singh has proposed an amendment for this item. Do I hear a second? Second.
Madam Chair,
Discussion on the amendment.
I move to amend this item by substitution with a revised version before your committee.
And this is where do I hear a second? Okay, discussion on the amendment.
Madam Chair, this It's moving from Asylum Street and appropriating to Ward Street.
Okay, so Alder Singh has made the amendment that this needs to be amended by substitution to replace Asylum Street with Ward Street. Any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of this amendment say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The amendment carries. We will now vote on the item as amended. Any discussion on this item before we actually take a vote on it? I'll just say that Reverend Benita Grubbs has been a presence even in this room. She's come before the Board of Alders a few times, and she's an amazing community activist. I know she retired, but I'm not sure how much of a retirement she'll probably have, because she is so embedded in the community, doing and has done just amazing things for our residents, particularly those most in need. And this is very befitting for her and very, very well deserved. And I encourage my colleagues to support this item. Any further discussion? Alder Singh.
Madam Chair, for time, I wasn't gonna do any discussion. I know we've spent a lot of time here, but being sitting on this board for a few years now, and I can truly say, or testify that this is one street naming that deserved the naming of this corner for Dr. Reverend Benita Grubbs. I knew her personally. I worked with her organization. For instance, Thanksgiving week, all through her organization, I deliver like 80 turkeys annually to my constituent. So well deserved. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Alder Singh. Alder Marks.
I would also, thank you, Madam Chair, I'd like to speak to that, I have had the privilege of knowing and working with Reverend Grubbs for many, many years, and she is truly an extraordinary human being. She is a New Haven treasure, and I think a role model and a hero to many of us. She is a fierce advocate with a unbreakable spirit, combined with just an unbelievable warmth, kindness, and compassion. She is, like I say, extraordinary, somebody who we not only want to thank, but want to put forward as a role model, really, for all of you.
Thank you, Alder Marks. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of this item, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays, abstentions? The ayes have it. Do I hear a motion to move item number 2?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. This is the grant for energy efficiency and conservation. Any discussion on this item? Alder Singh?
Madam Chair, we heard a lot of it, and it's a well-educated discussion we had tonight, and I'm in favor of this.
Any other discussion?
Just like to make
Alder
the,
Marks?
thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to just comment to give my appreciation to Director Winter, who I think is really doing a wonderful job keeping all of us focused on this really important topic of sustainability in the environment, and just comes with such a clear and convincing presentations. I just wanted to share a word of thanks to Director Winter.
Thank you, Alder Marks. Any further discussion? I'll just add, it was nice to hear that we are actually heading in the right direction as a city of New Haven. And 7% might not seem like a lot, but 7% is still 7%, and we're still, we're trying to do the right thing in the city. And we're lucky to have Director Winter to guide us, as Alder Marks mentioned, in this endeavor. There's still a lot of questions out there of the preciseness, as we learned tonight, of these vehicles. There's still a lot to be learned. And I'm glad that Director Winter actually kind of took a step back in getting a second refuse vehicle and thought about it. Let's see how this one works first and work out the kinks, etc. So I really respect that, because we could have moved forward with ordering another refuse truck and had some issues with it. So I'm glad we're not only going towards the right direction, but doing it in the right manner.
Well said.
So I encourage my colleagues to support this item. So if there's no further discussion, we could take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Do I hear a motion to move item number 3?
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
Item 3 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this item?
If I may,
Oh,
Madam Chair.
I take that all back.
No,
No,
you're good.
we're good.
I just wanted to point out that I made a mistake in the notes for you. So it's not replacing release, it's replacing pressure with throttling.
In the actual, okay, hang on.
But if you do it by substitution.
Oh, okay, yes, okay. Alder Singh,
Madam Chair, I make a motion to amend by substitution.
Second.
the motion to amend by substitution has been made and seconded. We will now listen to the amendment. Alder Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to amend this item by substitution with the revised version before this committee tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and the revised motion is replace release valve with throttling valve.
Yeah, it's to replace pressure with throttling.
Yes.
Oh.
It's on page 29.
Okay, yes. So if colleagues refer to page 29, it should read order of the New Haven, this is with the amendment, it should read order of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing execution of a throttling valve easement agreement between the City of New Haven and South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority. So again, Alder Singh proposed the language to replace
For the current valve.
pressure with throttling. Any discussion or clarification? Alder Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify that, do we need to be referencing the other place where it's being changed as well?
Yes, so throughout the document, the redlined items will be replaced with, updated to reference the new language.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And the language in there that release valve, the throttling valve will be automatic if the throttle could take the pressure up, but then depends on where needed more water, we can increase that pressure with the throttling valve. Have that mechanism reaching the other valve with only open and close. So this is a more valve that would accommodate the company.
Thank you for that explanation, Alder Singh. Any further discussion on this amendment? Okay. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We will now go back to the item as amended. Any discussion on the item as amended? Alder Hogan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was somewhat surprised that a communication plan wasn't in place for residents. I come from a world where the residents are always notified about everything. I was also somewhat surprised that they did not provide us a document that showed the multiple construction sites. They should have shipped the one. But going forward, I'm an operational guy, so it's nice to see on a map where all the different connections are going to occur, so we can see that families are being impacted on Barnes or the stores being impacted on Quinnipiac. I raised the question about the vault because in a professional experience, the Regional Water Authority abandoned a vault, never told anyone, and then it caused additional problems later on. And because this is under a state road and under an intersection, a major intersection, that is why I raised the question as to what happens when you abandon it or you no longer use it. So I'm in favor of what they're trying to do. I just think that going forward as a new alder, I'll be asking those kind of operational questions on behalf of the committee, just based on my experience.
And we appreciate that. Thank you. Any other discussion? I'm just gonna add, we asked for a lot of information from them this evening to be given to us by the second reading in a timely fashion. And one was a communication plan. It was to investigate the vault, and it was, to talk with the continuum of care for our residents there, and just to make sure that the site is as safe as possible for the students as well.
Madam Chair, did you mention noise?
No,
There was Alder Marks
yes.
suggested that the noise study be completed with regard to disruption to classroom and or residents of the, I'm not familiar with the name of the hotel, Comfort Inn?
It's now.
Has a new name, the facility
The
next door.
facility, yes. The Continuum of Care is our partner in that, but yes, it's the old Days Inn. Yes. Yes, Alder Singh.
If I may, Madam Chair, with the noise reduction, with the noise effects, my colleague asked the question. The gentleman stated to us that Route 80 is a highly, traffic road, and the traffic there creates more noise than what the construction would be creating. So I don't know where we should go with that. They should have a study or not, and because we'll have the noise from the traffic and construction, and he did said that there would be more like excavating to get under to the tubing and so forth, no heavy construction. So he did say the traffic noise would be more than the construction noise, and that's what I heard from the committee. So I just want to reflect on that.
Madam Chair, through you to Alder Singh, I think the discussion really was, would the noise level impact classrooms? If they were going to be working at the time school was in session, not so much the street noise and the highway noise, but would construction start during classroom hours?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Are you okay?
Yes. Give me a break.
Get just some more.
Recess for a second.
You know what?
Committee recess for?
Recess.
Recess for a moment.
Recess.
We can.
Go take your recess.
Sure, I'm sorry.
You turned red, are you okay?
Yeah, I have a tickle. You know, those tickles in your throat. You start crying.
Okay.
Turn red.
I'm not certified, so.
We need you, please. It's happening.
Alder Singh, I believe you were.
I'm ready for Madam Chair to come back. Thank you, Alder.
The communication plan speak with continuum, the effects of the noise on the community specifically the school and the shelter and the old Days Inn building. Is there anything else?
And communication with the residents.
And reaching out to the alders. I'm sorry. It's probably a hint for me to wrap up.
Madam Chair, just for purpose of discussion.
Yes.
I don't like the word perpetual. It's an awfully long time. I don't know what the standard is for giving easements. 100 years is also a long time. It's city property. We don't know the school's future plans. We don't know the city's plans with Days Inn. It just perpetual seems like a long time for the easement. I don't know. Other committee members have thoughts about that.
Are there other words that we can use? I mean, you bring up a point as to what happens if there are changes with the school. And what happens with that piece of property? Will it just... Well, I'm thinking two things here. One is we need to protect the new vault, right? We need to protect the new throttle or,
The vault.
So in the case just hypothetically, speaking, if that school were to, I don't know, if that property were to be sold for some reason to a developer, we probably need to protect that easement. But, I mean, I don't wanna, did you wanna say something?
I was gonna ask, would you like me to comment on that?
Sure.
Yeah, easements, if you think about it, like a driveway easement, that type of thing, they're filed on the land records and they go with the land. So they typically are permanent, and so normally, probably what would happen in situations if the city did decide to sell the land, if the school was no longer there or something, this easement for RWA would still follow the land sale. They're not owning the land, they just have the easement to use it. So it would, typically it would continue.
May I ask, okay, the easement is, as a fellow lawyer, the easement is just for this purpose, or the Regional Water Authority in perpetuity could do?
It would be only this specific purpose in their easement agreement.
Great question.
I mean, the city still owns the land, we're just giving them permission to use it for as long as it needs to be used for its purpose, but it does not have anything to do with the Regional Water Authority, where they can do anything but this, if that makes sense. Its sole purpose is for this reason.
Do you, in your history, how often are these easements perpetual?
I think it's very common.
I can't think of one that's not perpetual.
Thank you for humoring that conversation.
Any other discussion on this item or clarification? Because this is our opportunity. I mean, we've asked for a communication plan, just to kind of reiterate, documents on construction sites, what the vault situation, getting in touch with the area alders. Anything else? What am I missing?
Oh, I did have one comment. So since we are looking to ask for these items before a second reading, does that mean that we are giving them a sort of deadline? Because preferably it's a couple days before the actual meeting. And I think you mentioned that to them. So is there like a date in specific that we are going to give them for this and then read over that?
Well, I will tell you this, Alder Flores, is that if the material is not sent to us in a timely fashion, we can pass over the item at the second reading and not take any action on it and just delay it.
Okay.
We have that right. Yes.
Okay.
So, and we can, let's see how things go, but we can do that.
Okay.
That's our position that we can take.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. We also mentioned an Everbridge notification to be included on the letter. I mean, that's all part of that communication plan. And I think, if we are all in favor of this item, all these conditions need to be met prior to our second reading. And if you all are okay with that, we can take a vote. And if you're not okay with that, we can, hold off. And as I mentioned, we have the opportunity to pass over the item if we don't have all the information that we asked for. Okay, Alderson.
Madam Chair, I agree with you. I would ask my colleague to support it with this condition, and if it doesn't come true, we can always, in caucus, we can pause and listen until we have the information. So to let this out of a committee, I would urge my colleagues to vote for this, to get it out of the committee. Since it's the end of the year, we can put our calendar for this. We'll appreciate it. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Alderson. Any further discussion, Alder Moore?
Yeah, concur with Alder saying I think it's important for us to be supportive of these major infrastructure projects, to be supportive and collaborative on behalf of the city with the Regional Water Authority. I just do note that the individual sitting on the other side of the table may have been in conversations about this for the last 4 years, but this is the first that we as the legislators are hearing. And there are some important questions that we have to feel comfortable with as well. So thank you for the suggestion of information prior to the second reading. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for pointing that out, Alder Marks. Yes, you're correct. Okay, are we ready to take a vote? All in favor of this item, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Do I hear a motion? Let's see, we will take no action on item number 4, and then item number 5. Do I hear a motion to move item 5?
Madam Chair, move item number 5.
Second.
Item 5 has been moved and seconded. All in favor of, any discussion on this item? Or we? Okay. All in favor of reading and filing this item, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. The item will be read and filed.
So did we need to do an amendment on that?
Uh,
Is it originally?
No. I mean, the reason we are reading and filing it is because there's already a designated residential parking zone in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that concludes our agenda. Do I hear a motion to, oh wait, before we adjourn, I want to welcome Alder Hogan to CSEP. We appreciate you being here and your questions this evening, so we look forward to our monthly meetings with you, and welcome aboard.
I must say that I've worked with 2 of the 3 alders that are at the table at different capacities. It's a pleasure to be back in a different role and not sitting on that side. Now, so thank you for welcoming me.
Well, we're happy to have you.
Happy to have you all.
And with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
I'll let you do it. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the heads up. Because I forget, you know.
Yeah, I got it.
Well, after the meeting with